In the mini story, I will do three things. I will make a statement. For example,
Yes.
I arrived in Guatemala.
Oh.
When you hear a statement, a sentence,
Yes.
you just say, ah,
Ah.
or oh. Okay? You need to say that, show that you understand.
Yes.
This is not a question. Okay?
Yes.
A statement is not a question. So, when you hear a statement, say, ah. For example, I arrive in Guatemala. Ah. Okay? The second thing I will do is ask a question
Yes.
you know the answer to. For example, where do I arrive?
I arrive in Guatemala.
I will stop. You say the answer. Okay?
Guatemala.
You must
I
say
arrive
the
in
answer
Guatemala.
to every question. I say, I arrive in Guatemala. Where did I arrive?
I arrive in
You
Guatemala.
say,
Guatemala.
Guatemala.
I arrive in Guatemala.
Easy.
Yes, easy.
And number
Super
three,
easy.
I might ask a question you don't know the answer to. If you don't know the answer, just guess. Say any answer,
Yes.
but you must answer every question. Use your pause button if necessary.
Yes.
Okay, let's begin. Okay, here we go. I arrived in Guatemala on the Day of the Dead, November 1st.
Oh.
Did I arrive in Guatemala?
Yes, I arrived in Guatemala on
Yes,
the
I
day
arrived
of the November
in
1st.
Guatemala.
Yes.
Where did I arrive?
I arrived in Guatemala.
Guatemala.
On the day of the
I
dead.
arrived in
Guatemala.
Guatemala. I arrived in Guatemala on the Day of the Dead, November 1st. Who arrived in Guatemala on the
Me.
Day of the Dead?
Me. I arrived in
Well, me,
Guatemala
AJ.
on the day of the dead.
I arrived in Guatemala on the Day of the Dead, November 1st.
Yes.
Did I arrive in Guatemala on November 3rd?
No. November 1st.
No, I didn't arrive
in Guatemala on the day of the dead.
on November
November
3rd.
1st.
I arrived
Not
in Guatemala on November
1st.
1st.
Not 1st. First.
What day did I arrive in Guatemala?
November 1st. The day of the
November
dead.
1st. I arrived in
I
Guatemala
arrived in Guatemala
on
the day
November
of the
1st.
dead. November 1st.
Where did I arrive on November 1st?
Guatemala. I arrived in Guatemala on the day
Guatemala,
of the dead.
right? I
November
arrived
1st.
in Guatemala on November 1st.
Yes, I arrived in Guatemala on the day of the dead.
I arrived in Guatemala on the Day of the Dead, November 1st.
Yes, I arrived in Guatemala on the day
I
of the
was
dead.
curious about this holiday,
Oh.
so I went to the cemetery
Yes.
to see what was happening.
Yes. Oh.
Was I angry about this holiday?
No, I'm curious. I was curious about
I
this
wasn't
holiday.
angry about
Not
this
were
holiday.
angry. I was
Was I
curious.
sad about this holiday?
No, I was curious.
No, I wasn't sad
I was
about
curious.
this holiday. I was curious about this holiday. Who was curious about this holiday?
Me. I
was,
was curious
AJ.
about this
I
holiday.
was curious
curious about
about
this holiday.
this holiday. What was I curious about?
This holiday, the day of the dead.
A holiday.
I was
I
curious
was
about
curious
this holiday.
about the holiday.
Yes.
Which holiday was I curious about?
The day of the dead.
Which
I
holiday
was curious
was I
about.
curious about?
The day of the dead. Yes.
The Day of the
Day of
Dead.
the dead.
I was curious about the Day of the Dead.
Dead.
Was I curious about the Day of the Dead?
Yes.
Or was I curious about Christmas?
No. I curious about
I was
the
curious
day of the
about
dead.
the Day of the Dead, of course. I was curious about the Day of the Dead.
Yes.
So I went to the cemetery to see what was happening.
Oh.
Where did I go?
I went to the cemetery.
To the cemetery.
Yes.
I went
to the cemetery.
to the cemetery. Did I go to the cemetery
Yes.
or did I go to the airport?
No. I go to the cemetery.
Yeah,
Cemetery.
I went
to the cemetery.
the cemetery.
Yes.
Who went to the cemetery?
Me. I went to the cemeteries.
AJ. I went to
The
cemetery.
cemeteries.
Where did I go?
Cemetery. I went to the cemetery.
Right. I went to the cemetery.
cemeteries.
When did I go to the cemetery?
November 1st, the day of the dead. I went to the
November
cemetery
1st,
on the day of the
day
dead.
of the
November
dead.
1st.
I went to the cemetery
cemeteries.
on the Day of the Dead,
Yes, on the day of the dead.
November 1st.
November 1st.
Why did I go to the cemetery?
Because what
Well, to
I'm
see
just
what
to
was
see what's
happening.
happening. I'm curious
I went
about this
to the
holiday
cemetery
and I want
to
to
see
see
what
what's
was
happening.
Who went to the cemetery to see what was happening?
Me, I went to the cemetery
Me,
and
AJ,
see
went to the
what's
cemetery
happening.
to see what was happening. Where was the cemetery?
In Guatemala, the cemetery
In
was in
Guatemala.
Guatemala.
The cemetery was
Was
in
in Guatemala.
Guatemala. What is the Day of the Dead?
A holiday. This is
A
holiday.
holiday. The Day of the Dead is a holiday.
It's a holiday.
When is the Day of the Dead?
November 1st, the day of the dead.
November 1st.
On
The
November
Day
1st.
of the Dead was and is November
Yes.
1st.
It's
So I went to the cemetery on the Day of the Dead
yes.
to see what was happening.
What's happening?
What I found
It's
was quite interesting.
Oh
Was it boring?
no!
No, it wasn't boring.
It's real interesting.
Was it interesting?
Yes, it's real interesting.
Yes, it was interesting. The
But I
cemetery
find it's
was
more
interesting.
Interesting.
How did I feel
I felt
about
it's
the
more
cemetery?
interesting. I felt interesting.
I felt it was
interesting.
interesting. Or I thought it was interesting.
Interesting. I felt
Was it
it's,
boring
No.
or was it interesting?
it's more interesting. Yes.
It was interesting.
Interesting.
Of course, it was interesting.
I felt
What
it's more
was
interesting.
interesting?
Cemetery. Cemetery.
The cemetery.
in
The cemetery
Guatemala.
was interesting.
Yes. The cemetery was interesting.
When was the cemetery interesting?
November 1st. The
It was
cemetery
interesting
was interesting.
on the Day of
On
the
the day
Dead,
of the dead.
November 1st.
November 1st.
Okay, the atmosphere in the cemetery was like a party.
Oh,
Was the atmosphere very sad? No, no, the atmosphere was not sad.
sad.
The atmosphere was like
Like
a
what?
party. The atmosphere was very happy.
Yes, the atmosphere was very happy.
Was the atmosphere sad or happy?
The atmosphere was sad, happy.
The atmosphere was
The
happy.
atmosphere is like
The
a party, was
atmosphere
like a party.
was like
Like
a
a party.
party. What was like a party?
The atmosphere was
Atmosphere.
like a party.
The atmosphere in the cemetery was like a party. Where was the atmosphere like a party?
Guatemala.
In
On-
the cemetery.
In cemetery on
The
Guatemala
cemetery. The atmosphere
was like a party.
in the cemetery. Was the atmosphere like a party at my house?
No, in the cemetery.
No, no, not at my
The
house.
atmosphere
The
like
atmosphere
party
was
in
like a party
cemeteries.
in the cemetery.
In the cemeteries.
The atmosphere was not like a party in my house.
Yes.
So the atmosphere was like a party. There were people everywhere.
Oh.
Families were sitting around the graves of their dead ancestors. Where were the families sitting?
Around the grave.
Huh.
Families
Around
were sitting
the
around the grave
graves.
of the dead
They were
ancestors.
sitting around the graves.
Of the dead ancestors.
Who was sitting around the graves?
Families
The families.
were sitting around the
The
grave
families
of the
were
dead
sitting
ancestors.
around the graves.
The dead graves.
Were they sitting around the trees?
No,
No, they weren't sitting
they
around
were
the
sitting
trees.
around the trees.
They were sitting around the graves.
Of the dead ancestors.
So, where were they sitting?
Around the grave of the dead
Around the
ancestors.
graves.
Yes, they were sitting around the graves of
Families
the
were
dead
sitting around the graves
Yes,
of their dead
ancestors.
ancestors. Were they sitting around the graves of their dead ancestors?
Yes,
Yes, yes. They were
sitting
sitting around the graves
of the
of their
dead
dead ancestors.
ancestors.
Were they sitting around the graves of their friends?
No, they were sitting around the grave of the
No,
dead
not really.
ancestors.
They were
Not
sitting around
friendly,
the graves
not
of
friends.
their dead
Ancestors.
ancestors. Who was sitting around the graves?
Families are sitting around
Families
the
were
grave
sitting
of
around
the
the
dead
graves.
ancestors.
Whose graves were they sitting around?
Ancestors,
Whose
their
graves
ancestors.
were they sitting
They were
around?
sitting around they were sitting around
Their
the
dead
grave of the
ancestors.
dead
Their
ancestors.
Their ancestors'
The
graves.
ancestors'
They
graves
were sitting around the
Of-
graves of
of
their
the
dead
dead ancestors.
Were they sitting around the graves of their dead ancestors
Yes,
or the graves of their friends?
ancestors. They were
Ancestors,
sitting around the
right? They
grave
were sitting
of
around the
dead
graves
ancestors
of their
not
dead ancestors.
friends. Not friends. Friends.
They cleaned the graves
Yes.
and
Cleaned the
added
grave.
fresh
Added
flowers.
fresh flowers.
Who
Oh.
cleaned the graves? That's right, the
Families.
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 What did they add?
They add fresh flowers.
They added
fresh
fresh
flowers.
flowers.
They added fresh flowers.
Did they add food?
No, fresh flowers.
No, no, they didn't
They
add
didn't add food. They add fresh
Did
flowers.
they add money?
No, fresh
No,
flowers.
no, they didn't add money.
Money.
They added
fresh flowers.
What did they clean?
They clean the graves.
They cleaned
The
the
graves.
graves.
Yeah, they clean the graves. Clean.
Whose graves did they clean?
That's ancestors.
Their ancestors.
The ancestors.
They cleaned
They
their
clean
ancestors'
their ancestors' graves.
Where did they add flowers?
Grave.
Where?
Grave of the dead
They added
ancestors.
flowers to the graves.
To the grave of the dead
That's right.
ancestors.
They cleaned the graves
And add
and added
fresh
fresh
flowers.
flowers. Good. I walked through the cemetery and admired the beauty of all the colorful flowers. Where did I walk?
I walked through a cemetery. Through the cemetery.
The cemetery. I walked through the cemetery.
Walk.
Did I walk through the park?
No. The cemetery.
No,
I
I
walked
didn't walk
through the
park.
cemeteries.
I walked
Through
through the cemetery.
walked. I walked. I walked.
Where did I walk?
The cemeteries. Cemetery. The
Through
cemetery.
the cemetery.
I walked through the cemetery.
Who walked through the cemetery?
Me. I walked
Right.
through the cemeteries.
I walked
Walked
through
through
the
the
cemetery.
cemeteries. Walked through the cemeteries.
Did I walk through the cemetery
Yes.
or did I walk through the park?
I walked through the cemetery.
Walked through the
The
cemetery.
cemeteries.
That's right. And I admired the beauty
And admired.
of all the colorful flowers.
Oh.
Did I admire the beauty of the trees?
No. All colorful
No.
flowers.
I didn't admire the beauty
I admire the
of the
beauty
trees.
of all colorful flowers.
Did I admire the beauty of the children?
No.
No.
All colorful
Didn't
flowers.
admire the beauty
I admire
of the
the
children.
beauty of all colorful flowers.
What did I admire?
Colorful flowers. I admire
Flowers,
the beauty
right?
of all
I
colorful
admired
flowers.
the beauty of
All
all the
colorful
colorful
flowers.
flowers.
Yes.
Who admired the beauty of all the colorful flowers?
Me. I.
That's right.
I
AJ
admire the beauty
admired
of all
the beauty
colorful flowers.
of all the colorful flowers.
I admire the beauty of all colorful
Where
flowers.
were the flowers?
In the cemetery.
On the graves.
On the grave.
In the
In
cemetery.
the cemetery. I admire the
The
beauty
flowers
of all
were
colorful
on
flowers.
the graves.
On the grave. In the
In the
cemeteries.
cemetery. Were the flowers in the park?
No. In the
No,
cemetery.
they weren't
On the
in
grave.
the park.
In the cemetery.
Were the flowers in my house?
No. I admire
No,
the beauty
they
of all
weren't
colorful
in my
flowers.
house. Where
On the grave.
were the
In the
flowers?
cemeteries.
The flowers were on the graves.
Yes.
In the
On the
cemetery.
grave. In the cemeteries.
Where did I walk?
I walk through the cemeteries.
Through the
The
cemetery.
cemeteries.
When did I walk through the cemetery?
The day of the dead. November 1st.
Ah,
I walked through
November
the cemetery
1st.
on the day of the dead. November 1st.
Right, November 1st, the day of
I
the dead.
walked through
I
the
walked
cemetery.
through the cemetery.
Cemeteries.
What was the cemetery like?
Like a party. They don't feel like a party.
Like a party.
The cemetery like a
It was
party.
like a party.
The
The
cemetery
cemetery was
was
like a
like a
party.
party. It was like a party.
Was I curious about this holiday?
Yes, I was curious about
Yes,
this
I was
holiday.
curious about
This
this holiday.
holidays.
Which holiday was I curious about?
The day of the dead. I was curious about
Yeah, the day,
the day
of
of
the
the
dead.
dead.
I was curious about
The
the
day
day
of the dead.
of the dead. So I walked through the cemetery.
Yes, I walked through the cemeteries.
There was also color in the sky
There's also color in
because
the
many
sky.
kids were flying kites.
Oh. Yes.
Where was the color?
In the sky. There's
the
also
sky.
color in the
In
sky.
the
There
sky.
was also color in the sky.
Why was there color in the sky?
Because many kids were flying kites.
Because kids were
Were
flying
flying kites.
the kites. There was color in the sky
Color in the sky.
because kids were
Was
flying
flying
kites.
kites.
Who were flying kites?
Kids. The kids.
Kids were
was
flying
flying
kites.
kites.
Was the sky colorful
Yes.
or was the sky gray?
Sky wasn't red.
The sky was colorful.
was colorful.
What was colorful?
The skies.
The sky.
skies
The
was
sky
colorful.
was colorful.
Colorful.
Why was the sky colorful?
Because many kids were flying
Because
kites.
kids were
Were
flying
flying kites.
What were the kids flying?
Kites. Kids were
Kites.
flying kites.
The kids were flying
Kites.
kites. Where were they flying kites?
In the cemetery, the kids were flying
the
kites in
cemetery.
cemeteries.
Kids were flying kites
In
in
cemeteries.
the cemetery. Who was flying kites in the cemetery?
Kids. Kids were flying kites
Kids,
in
right.
cemeteries.
Children.
Children.
Kids were flying
Children
kites
were flying
in the
kites
cemetery.
in cemeteries.
Some families were having a picnic next to the graves.
Oh.
We, in the United States, don't do this.
Yes.
So some families were having a picnic next to the graves.
Oh.
They ate,
Drank
they drank,
and they chat
and they chatted together.
together.
Did they eat?
Yes, they ate.
Yes, they ate. Who ate?
The family. The families
Families,
ate.
right? Of course.
Families
Families
ate.
ate.
The family ate.
What did they eat?
They ate watermelon food.
Huh? They ate
Watermelon
Guatemalan
food.
food. Food from Guatemala.
Food from watermelon.
The families ate Guatemalan food.
Yes, the watermelon
Did they
food
eat
from watermelon.
American food?
No, watermelon food.
No, they didn't eat American food.
They
They
ate
ate
watermelon
Guatemalan
food. Food.
Where did they eat
In cemetery.
Guatemalan food?
They ate watermelon food in
In
cemeteries.
the cemetery, right? They ate food in the cemetery.
Cemeteries.
They ate Guatemalan food
Yes.
in the cemetery. They also drank in the cemetery.
Oh,
Did they drink water in the cemetery?
no. They drank beer.
No.
They drank beer.
What did they drink
They
in
drank
the
beer
cemetery?
in cemeteries.
They drank
Beer.
beer. Who drank beer?
The watermelon
The
families.
families.
The families.
families drank
They
beer.
drank beer.
What did they eat?
They eat and they ate watermelon food.
Guatemalan food. They
Food.
ate Guatemalan food
Food.
and drank
And
beer.
drank beer. Drank beer. Drank.
Did they drink beer? Or
Yes.
did they drink water?
They drank beer.
They drank beer.
Beer. Yes, they drank beer.
Where did they drink beer?
In cemetery. They drank
drank
beer in
beer.
cemeteries.
In the cemetery.
In the cemeteries.
When did they drink beer?
November 1st, the day of the death.
November
They
1st,
drank
The
beer
day of the
on
dead.
the day of the death, November
They drank
1st, in
beer.
cemeteries.
When did they eat?
November
They
1st,
ate
they ate
on November
on November
1st,
1st,
the
in
day of the dead.
cemeteries. Yes, the day of the
Did
dead.
they chat together?
Yes, they chatted together.
They chatted together. Who chatted together?
Families
The
chatted
families,
together.
of course. The families
They
chatted
chatted
together.
together.
When did they chat together?
November 1st, the day of the
November
death.
1st, the
They
day
chatted
of the
together
dead.
on the day of the death. November
People
1st.
laughed and smiled.
Oh.
In the United States, cemeteries are always somber.
Oh.
Are cemeteries happy in the United States?
No, somber. In the United States,
no,
cemetery
never.
are always
Cemeteries
somber.
aren't happy in the United States.
No,
Cemeteries
somber.
are always
Somber.
somber.
Cemetery are always
Sad.
somber,
Serious.
sad, and serious.
Are cemeteries serious in the United States?
Yes, cemetery are
Yes,
always
they are.
serious
In the United States,
in United States.
cemeteries are always
Serious
somber.
and
They are
somber.
always serious.
Somber.
In the United States, are cemeteries somber
Yes, somber.
or are cemeteries happy?
No, somber. In the United States,
Somber. Right?
cemeteries are always somber,
somber
serious.
in the United States.
In United States, in the United States.
Was the cemetery somber in Guatemala?
No, in Guatemala,
No,
cemetery are
no.
always happy.
Wasn't
Happy.
somber
Not
in
somber.
Guatemala. The cemetery wasn't somber in Guatemala.
In the
But-
United States,
In the United States,
the cemeteries are
cemeteries
always
are
somber.
always
Somber.
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 Are cemeteries always somber in Guatemala or in the United States?
In the United States,
In
the
the United States,
cemeteries
cemeteries
are always somber.
somber.
In the United States, cemeteries are always somber.
Where are cemeteries always somber?
In the United States, in the United States,
States.
cemeteries are
In the
always
United
somber.
States, cemeteries are always
Always somber. Somber.
Are they
Somber.
happy?